Welcome to a new daily top Askreddit video. Today's topic: Redditors who grew up poor. Besides practical money-saving measures, what were the unwritten social expectations of your world growing up? Don't ask for anything because you won't get it. Yes, my dad's motto was those who ask, don't get. It really confused me as a child and still to this day. Funny enough, even if you didn't ask, you still never got. Yeah, and as an adult, you're basically on your own. I remember being in awe of how much people relied on their parents in their 2020s. I'd be in a bind and someone might say, why don't you ask your mom? Because I have more money than she does. This is a huge one. Really affects every life decision you make because you don't have backup. This one is a really hard one to get over, too. Like I don't ask for anything, ever, and it leaves the people who love me very confused lol. Yeah, same here. I didn't realize this wasn't normal until my girlfriend didn't get why I was so uneasy with a friend buying me lunch. A lot of pent-up guilt there. Never tell your friends that you couldn't afford food or give them any clue about what it's like at home. My mother used to ask me if I told anyone how we live, and that's when I started questioning our situation. I was talking to a friend and she stopped me and said, "You don't tell people what goes on inside of this house, do you?" No, of course not, I lied, because if I'd said yes, she'd manipulate my father into beating my ass within an inch of my life. She pretty much got my father to beat me whenever she wanted it. What a bitch of a friend. Edit because I misunderstood. What a bitch of a mother. I once told some friends we had mushrooms growing in our house. I thought it was cool. My mom was angry and told me to never tell anyone again. I realized as I got older why she was angry. The floor of our house was rotting, thus the mushrooms. But she couldn't afford to get it fixed. She was worried CPS would take me away for unsafe living conditions. I thought this was going to be a different type of mushrooms. In the UK, do not answer the door. Do not answer the phone. When the man is looking through the window, make sure you can't be seen. Do not tell anyone who knocks on the door where the parents work. This turned out to be doorstep lenders like Provident, no idea how they are still around these days. In the UK too, and this was a nightmare for me when I was a kid. Parents used to work and kid me always cowered in fear whenever the man came around and knocked. I still remember the way his shadow moved against the curtains. I was convinced he would get in and drag me to court because my dad owed someone money. Adult me doesn't owe anyone a damn thing, but I still get anxious when there's a knock on the door or when the phone rings and I don't recognize the number. Your comment took me back to trying breath silently and being terrified of coughing. Good for you being debt-free, I am the same and truly grateful for it. USA, my parents worked and were usually home about an hour or so after my elementary school got out. We lived around the corner and down the way, like less than 1 kilometers, probably half a mile or so anyway. I had a cell phone to call when I got home. I was prepped with do not answer the door for anyone. Not your grandpa, not your uncle, not our friends, your friends, mailman, no one. Not the police or fire department unless the house is already on fire. I never opened the door for anyone. If I knew who they were, I would shout through the paned window overlooking the porch. But even then, that was rare. I usually just stayed out of sight. I also always keep my front door locked now too. And if I'm not expecting someone, I don't answer the door if I'm home alone. I also have a big dog with a big bark. Edit, a letter, so the window wasn't hurting anymore. Second edit, because the question keeps coming in, I wasn't allowed to answer the door even for people we knew because you never know who child predators are until it's too late. I too have front door anxiety. I still tell my daughters that, especially when I have to do my 10-hour late shift and leave them at midday to homeschool themselves because of lockdown and because there are some truly evil walking demos out there and they are dangerous, cunning and determined. Mormons. Not eating lunch because you either just ate breakfast or dinner's only a few hours away, you'll be fine. I still have trouble remembering to eat lunch. Same, my husband always stays on me to be sure I've eaten because I'll go without either because I forgot to eat or else because I will go without to make sure everyone else got enough food, even seconds, before I'll eat. Also, growing up, people or family were always fed in a certain order at meals: elderly, men, women over 40-ish, young kids, the rest of the women and any other kids / teens. Edit, grew up strict Southern Baptist in Western North Carolina. We weren't allowed to do any kind of extracurricular activities. So, no instruments, no joining any kind of sports or Girl Scouts or anything that required an upfront investment for uniforms or the season. Walmart shoes. My dad once said I wasn't really in need of glasses, that I just wanted to look like all my four-eyed friends. Lol, spoiler alert, totally needed them. Off-brand everything. This makes me sad for the extracurriculars. It's insane how much money you need for sports and instruments, even buying used. They're so good for kids and should be available to everyone. Where I went to school, a lot of the extracurriculars had grants where the rest of the parents would pitch in to pay the fees of the families that truly couldn't afford it. It was an economically diverse school with a pretty even distribution of families from food stamps to millionaires. Keep your hair brushed, your clothes clean, and be articulate and polite in all circumstances. We were not going to be trash just because we were poor. Also, no wearing ripped jeans, even if it's the style. We're not spending money on new pants that look like old worn-out pants. This made me so mad. I always blew holes out in my jeans because I was a rough kid and would fall and play hard. My mom would always find my jeans with holes and cut them into shorts without asking me. I always thought the jeans with holes looked cool. My mom was a seamstress and decided one day to cut all of the torn-up hems off my pants and replace them with cool neon colors back when raggedy hems was the cool thing. I was so mad. My mom and dad got so good at this that people who didn't know us very well thought we were solid middle class. I can't remember how many times I got dropped off by a friend's parents only for them to ask, "Why do you live here?" It's because this is where our house is. All our clothes were clearance, thrift stores, and hand-me-downs. We were expected to be well-groomed, well-mannered, learned, and carry ourselves like we had money. My mom always called it middle-class values. Lol. Thing is, it worked. My parents never got out of poverty, but my sisters and I are all solidly middle-class BC. We worked for it. Edit, thanks for the rewards. For anyone curious or want advice, I am an open book and happy to help. Yes. Being poor was okay. Looking poor was the real crime. Personal appearance is important. Also, acting poor I guess too. Not really that poor people act a certain way I guess, but my parents were adamant that we were not going to act like white trash despite being poor. A/C was only for company. I lived in Florida and didn't know I could use the air conditioner without having someone over until I moved out of my parents' home. Shit, even our company had to sweat their asses off with us. We placed a bowl of ice cubes behind a fan, lol. In the same vein, I lived in a place with bitter winters. While the thermostat at school and other public spaces was turned up past 70 degrees Fahrenheit, my home was always around 60 degrees, sometimes dropping to the 50s. We'd offset the low temperature by sleeping with multiple blankets and wearing layers upon layers, sometimes even wearing snow pants around the house and to bed. Same. Even as a kid, always had to go to the restroom in the middle of the night. The floor felt like ice. If someone buys you food at a restaurant, order as cheaply as possible even if they tell you order whatever you want. Used to get death glares from parents if I ordered something $10 or over at a place where average prices was $10. If you can get a burger and fries for $8, you better be eating a burger. I grew up solidly middle class, but I always do this if someone else pay for the meal. I just hate it when people spend too much money on me. It makes me feel guilty. Difference between you choosing it and it being forced on you. When I was visiting my grandma for her 90th with my mom, her BIL took everyone to a really nice place and I nearly melted down cause everything was well over 10 and I was in a panic. Don't do anything bad or illegal. But if you do, don't get caught. Bail is expensive. Lawyers and court fees are expensive. And synonymously never call 911, the police, and only go to the doctor when it's needed. Edit, the definition of needing is widely different for poor people. Edit 2, can you guys please lead worse lives so a comment like mine doesn't affect you as much, and I don't have to deal with feeling powerful with how much karma I have. I am absolutely begging you at this point, which I can see how ironic that is. Per second, sarcasm. Never see a doctor or go to the emergency room unless you are actually dying. And, if you touch the thermostat you will be dying. Nothing wasted. Mum had a dish called mixed up stew, which was basically a little mince beef, mashed potatoes and any leftovers from the fridge. Good menu planning, she never called it that, but one meal led to the next with last night's leftovers included. Failing that, she always had a soup on the go using bones from chicken, dried barley and, yet again, leftovers. Thing is, they were all delicious, but that could be me just remembering her fondly. To this day I am still confused by people who seem to hate leftovers. It comes up a lot when there's a discussion on whether it's cheaper to cook vs eat out. People who find it expensive to cook want to something fresh and brand new every day. Whereas I'll make a lasagna, about 6 portions, freeze it and have it whenever during the week/month. It confuses me even more when that person is British, considering how popular pre-made frozen food is here, and how many people find themselves at Frankie and Benny's, probably our version of Olive Garden, or TGI Fridays. I understand that cooking takes time and effort, which is why it does make sense to me to throw away leftovers or not make a little bit extra. My partner and their family hate leftovers. I think it has something to do with how they've generally always had money growing up. I wouldn't call them rich, but they were comfortable. I was so surprised my first Thanksgiving at their house when they organized the meal to have bare minimum leftovers. To me that's the whole point of Thanksgiving. You have leftovers for days so you don't have to cook and get to enjoy at minimum 2 meals of Thanksgiving food. I wouldn't touch leftovers until I met my partner. I was horrified the first time she cooked something with old food. Turns out I was a spoiled man baby, 20 years on, and I'm nearly cured.